Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports Podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Another year, another playoff victory for the Chiefs, and now it's on to the Divisional Round and a trip to Buffalo. On today's show, beat writer Jesse Newell and columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian share their thoughts on the Chiefs' victory over the Miami Dolphins in the wild card round and look ahead to the showdown against the Bills. It's been a fascinating series in recent years, Chiefs versus Bills, Patrick Mahomes versus Josh Allen. The Bills have had the upper hand in the regular season, but the Chiefs are 2-0 in playoff games in recent years. We break it all down on today's show. So let's get started with Vahe, Sam, and Jesse. Everybody thawed out from Saturday?
I am. I will say that we felt some sense of harshness on the way to the car around 1:30 or 2 a.m. But mostly I think what we all felt was like, I cannot believe people were out there for 3 or 4 hours or 5 or 6 hours because I wouldn't have.
The only thing colder I can remember, or just as cold, and Jesse will attest to this, is the walk from Hilton Coliseum to your car after a night Iowa State basketball game. It's as cold as I've ever been. This one felt like that. It was that cold.
You can ask my wife. One of the bottom 3 places in the world for me is Ames, Iowa, because I have made that walk way too many times, Blair, and it always resembles the coldest place I've ever been.
I did once go to a town called Candu, North Dakota in December because it was the hometown of the Rams general manager, Charlie Armey, at a time where the Rams were pretty good, and I was working in St. Louis, and he challenged me actually to go in December. So I did. It was not advisable. That was the only time I was colder, and it was the first time I ever saw cars plugged in to stay warm overnight, and the first time I learned there was such a thing as remote means of turning on, as Sam used on his car the other night to get the car started first. But the idea that you live there, like that you just go ahead and stay there, it struck me
Choose to be there.
By choice. Anyway, sorry, I'm going on and on. But
well, it was so cold during the game that Patrick Mahomes' helmet broke. I've never seen that. That was kind of an amazing play at the end of a terrific play for Mahomes. Was it a 13-yard run?
13-yard run, and I think it was 2nd and 7. And he had the first down and continued to go, and it led to quite a picture being taken by our Emily Curiel, who I think just for having been out there in the atmosphere, along with our Nick Wagner, deserved to have something great come of it. And she did. It was terrific work, and it's been appreciated one way or another all across the country.
Did anybody else see the portrait photo of her from the game?
Yeah. She
told me that she had the icicles on the eyelashes. she told me that they had frozen together. There were times during the game she had to blink just to unfreeze her eyelashes. So it was that kind of night. But look, the Chiefs I thought played pretty well. Still have some red zone issues. We should get into that, but they're moving the ball a lot better. They're just going up and down the field. But you take this game and the Cincinnati Bengals game, the second to last regular season one where the starters played, and I think there's some encouraging signs. There was something about both defenses that left something to be desired, the Bengals and the Dolphins, and it'll be a little bit different when they play the Bills in Buffalo on Sunday in the divisional round game. But I think if you're Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, Matt Nagy, and the offensive players and coaches, you got to feel a little bit better about where this offense is, Sam, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it goes back to what we talked about after the Raiders game and after the Bengals game, is that they've cleaned stuff up pre-snap. The pre-snap stuff looks a lot better, and therefore the post-snap's going to look better. And listen, I mean, the Dolphins were hobbled. They didn't have their edge rushers, and I always think those are the teams that are going to give the Chiefs the most fits because their their tackles are probably their weakness of their offense right now. And when you don't have guys that can exploit that, then I think the Chiefs are going to look pretty good offensively. But what really stands out to me is because we've been talking about the pass catchers so much is Rashee Rice looks like a different player than what he was in the first month of the season, which I think a lot of us anticipated. But I also thought the week off did Travis Kelce some good. And look, he dropped 3 passes. But I think if you're looking at just the anecdotes from or the statistics for how he will perform going on in the playoffs, you'd like to say he cleans that part up, and he was open more than he has been recently. So a couple good signs for the pass game that wasn't quite as dependent on the Dolphins.
That first drop, it was the first play of the game, right? He got technically a drop on that. I don't think he had his head turned around to look it in. It kind of came upon him quickly. The one I'm sure he wished he had back was the one later where it looked like he would have scored if he had caught it down in the red zone. So, but once again, the red zone continues to be an issue. And thank goodness for Harrison Butker's accurate leg. He had, the 6 field goals against the Bengals and 4 more against the Dolphins here. The guy's just incredible. And a couple, 2 against the Chargers in the game that all the starters start, but he had to play. So the guy's been pretty amazing. What has to change in the red zone? Jesse, what do you see as the red zone issue for this team?
Well, I went back and watched the film of it. One of them, they would have had a walk-in touchdown if they had executed a block correctly. And that's sort of what they've relied on in short yardage situations is that they've sort of said, hey, year 2, year 3, go beat up your man and go get this thing. And on one particular play when I think it was first and goal from the 3, they had a really good play call. They had a puller coming around the side, and unfortunately a blitzer for the Chiefs kind of stepped up in the gap, and Juwan Taylor wasn't able to get him sealed off and had some backfield penetration. But if Juwan Taylor has his head on the swivel and sees that a little bit quicker, then all of a sudden, again, the Chiefs are going to walk in on a touchdown there. So they really have relied upon, whether it's short yardage or red zone, they've relied upon that run game to be able to take care of that part of it, especially late in the season. And I think you have to give kudos to the Chiefs offensive line for how they played when it comes to pass blocking. And it's sort of why I never bought fully the whole national narrative of like the Chiefs need to become a running football team. Well, their tackles haven't run blocked very well all year, and Isaiah Pacheco is great for what he is. He moves the pile from 4 yards to 7 yards and has good traction with his short steps in icy conditions, but he's not a guy that breaks a lot of tackles in the open field and turns 10 yards into 70. So this still is a team that's going to have to throw the football, and that's what they did so well. You mentioned it, Blair, is that they got chunk yardage. They had 5 20-plus yard pass plays in this particular game. And so moving from the 20 to the 20 was really good. And they didn't turn the ball over until the last possession when the game was already out of reach. So they did all those things without shooting themselves in the foot. As far as the red zone problems go, we know Andy's going to have some trickery coming up, and that's how they kind of scored one of their touchdowns with Isaiah Pacheco taking a direct snap. So I'm sure they'll have more up their sleeves if they think that the run game can't get it going. But you hear me kind of say this a lot of times every single week where it's kind of a lack of execution when it doesn't work. We don't talk about the 3-yard touchdown runs when they do work, but the Chiefs had an opportunity in that one. Juwan Taylor didn't get his guy blocked. And like I said, the tackle issues have sort of been something that's haunted this team throughout the year. I think to Sam's point, it did not haunt them as much as this past game because Miami was so beat up on the edge.
Juwan Taylor's an interesting guy, isn't he? He got the penalty on what would have been Rashee Rice's second touchdown reception. The block in the back. Upon further reflection, was that a good call?
I don't think it was. I guess it's asking a lot of the official to moderate the whole play, but he did get shoved. He got shoved in the back. Into the back, yeah. So I don't think it should have been a penalty. You guys might disagree, but I think that it's a bum rap.
Well, for a guy that gets a lot of raps.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem, right? I don't know if it necessarily figures on that play, but I do think we've seen examples of things that go against him because he's got the track record a little bit.
Leads the NFL in penalties.
Yeah.
By a lot. He's got 50% more than anybody else in the league.
And what percentage? I meant to look this up yesterday. I didn't quite get to it, but out of the Chiefs' offensive penalties this year, he's got almost half of them.
No, not half. He had 17 in the regular season. The Chiefs definitely had more than 34.
I thought they had 39 offensive penalties, but I might be wrong about that. As Bill Self would say, check me on that, Sam. Except for Bill Self always knows the number when he's saying that.
You check it.
You check it. You got the computer. You're the guy, the skeptic.
I'll let Sam look it up, but to his point, I want to make this point because Sam said something really good early in the season, and I think this is what we saw from the Chiefs on Saturday, which is penalties usually don't kill this team because they just make plays after them, or mistakes don't usually kill this team because they just sort of bounce back. And I think we saw some really good resilience. It's something we probably needed to see from the Chiefs throughout the course of the season because we talk so much about their sideline tirades and getting mad at officials and things just we don't normally see with the Chiefs. But to you guys' point, Travis Kelce dropped a ball. They were on 3rd and 10, and they converted. You know what I mean? Juwan Taylor had a false start penalty, and the next play, they got a huge play to Rashee Rice. And so that was maybe sort of one of the underlying really positive things we saw from the Chiefs, which is kind of to Sam's point earlier, which is in general, penalties don't kill offenses because good offenses can overcome them. And what we saw from the Chiefs this year is it felt like they were stuck in the mud so much and they got affected by it so much that those 5-yard penalties turned into monstrous things they couldn't overcome. And for a game at least, the offense was good enough to overcome mistakes. So I do think that's a positive sign for them moving forward, especially with some of the adversity they faced throughout the course of the season.
Sam wants to tell everybody that I was way off on that figure.
He's got 20% of his team's penalties this year, and that's after the two.
Of the offense, though, is what I was saying.
Right. The offense has committed 63 penalties this year, second in the NFL.
Didn't I say 63?
39.
Plus 24? Minus 24?
Well, they may be able to overcome some of these mistakes, but they did not overcome the Taylor block in the back or the Creed Humphrey dribble snap back to Mahomes, both in the red zone, and the Creed Humphrey snap happened on 3rd down, so Mahomes just had to throw it away and settled for field goals on both occasions. But, it's as Patrick Mahomes has said it more than once, that, he's changed his approach to this team because of how good this defense is. And as long as they're getting points on these possessions and the defense is holding the opponent, and as it did, Miami had 7, right? Best defensive effort in that regard since the Chiefs shut out the Texans in the 2015 divisional game. You can, as long as you're getting production on the possession, you can rely on this defense to do its job, do its part.
This defense has done some good things in the playoffs, but and Sam got into this the other day from his column off the game. Even in the Spagnuolo era, it's given up 25.5 points a postseason game.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah, and 25 a game in the postseason against the Patriots got Bob Sutton fired. Of course, that was 37-1 in one game, and it was a long time coming in a lot of ways. But the point is, they've found their ways to contribute even in the postseasons with some key plays and stuff. But the numbers not been great, so that amplifies, I think, the point of what that achievement was against the Dolphins. The highest scoring team in the NFL. And obviously the circumstances in the AFC, circumstances were harsh and different, and makes you wonder how that game would have played in Miami. But they didn't play it in Miami. But what were you going to add something about the defense, Sam?
Well, just what you said. I mean, it's the lowest. It's the first time they've allowed fewer than 13 points in the Patrick Mahomes era in a game. It was their second lowest yards per play they've allowed during the Patrick Mahomes era, which.
We're not talking about just playoffs, all games.
No, those are playoffs.
Oh, okay.
Those are playoffs, yeah. They did not allow fewer than 13 points in a playoff game since Patrick Mahomes, in a game Patrick Mahomes has played in the playoffs. That was that Indianapolis game in 18.
His first playoff game.
Yeah, that breaks the home playoff drought. But, I mean, that just speaks to the point is when Patrick Mahomes says – we can punt, or, that Vahe's touched on a couple times. I mean, it literally is a different defensive performance than he has ever had when he's been the quarterback of a playoff team. And, the way I phrase it in the column is for so long we've been talking about how can this offense be different in order to get back to where it was, that I think we've just too readily ignored the fact that the defense has been the same for 18 weeks now. Like, this has been such a consistent performance. They're the only team in the NFL that has not allowed 30 points in a game all season. And they're playing a team next that I think the relevance here is the first two of the games the Chiefs lost this year were teams that they were playing for the second time, and the Dolphins were a team they were playing for the second time. And that Broncos game and the Raiders game, their defense played worse the second time. I guess I should say the offense played worse in the Raiders game. But, when you shut a team like the Dolphins down, when they know they're the team that has to make the adjustments, they're one of the most complicated offenses in the league. And so what do? You respond with complicated. And rather than trying to make the game more simple, you say, okay, we'll play complicated too. And I've never seen a quarterback look as out of sorts in a game that I've covered as Tua. Had no idea what was going on in a game. Their entire offense is built on timing. We saw snaps with L'Jarius Sneed just taking timing away. A lot of teams try and press the Dolphins, press coverage the Dolphins. The Chiefs made it work because, they just gave them different looks than literally that they've presented all season. And it's why his playbook is so deep.
Hey, one quick thing to go back to just while we're sort of on this, and I'd love to hear Sam and Jesse chime in on the simplification of the offense part, or at least the nuanced difference we're seeing in the last couple full squad games. Pacheco had 24 carries on Saturday, and that again was maybe somewhat due to the elements, although the Chiefs did come out throwing passes on their first three plays, and I think that and
a season high,
maybe. Was it a career high?
Just to put that into context. I'm not positive it was a career high. I know it was a season high, though.
A season high, and he had 18 against the Bengals. So, that's a little bit of a pattern. The other pattern, you guys have alluded to it a few different times, I think they're certainly simplifying the number of people they're going to go to in the extreme. 12 targets to Rashee Rice. He's been targeted something like 67 times in the last 7 games, and has flourished, right? 300-yard games in that span, back-to-back 100-yard games in the games he's played. Almost nobody else is getting more than a couple targets. Mecole Hardman had 3 targets, all of them with their own adventures. I don't think any of them tell you that that's what they should do again, although who knows. But I guess I'm just thinking in the vein of what you were talking about before, Blair, that it looks a little different than what we've seen.
They've refined, to your point, they've refined the guys that have shown them over the course of the season they can depend on. Rashee Rice, everything we were talking about in the preseason was his drops. And he hasn't dropped a pass in like 6 weeks.
Right. Dropped on Saturday, though.
Until Saturday.
But
they they're just going with the guys that all along we've thought have been their most dependable guys, and it's just taken them a while to get to this spot in the season, which just makes you think that a lot of the guys in this roster they thought would come around by the end of the season. I think Kadarius Toney's top of that list that just haven't. And so you got to roll with the guys that are rolling for you.
Real quick, a number to throw in. Patrick Mahomes had 7 throwaways this past game against the Dolphins. It's tied for his career high. First time he'd done that since 2021 in a game, and his season high before that was 4, and that was 2 games ago against the Raiders as well. So to talk about some of that, maybe flipping of the not having to do everything offensively or feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders, that could be an indication right there that he's decided, hey, avoid the turnovers, avoid the negative plays at all costs, rely on the defense a little bit more.
I think that's a really great point, and one that I discovered kind of by accident last night when I kept looking up Patrick's numbers and the number of players he targeted, and it was 34 targets. And I was like, well, it was 23 of 41. And finally, the light bulb came on, and it really supports the point we're all trying to make, what you just said, Jesse, to say that it's more apt to do that and just do it when you have to.
Well, I mentioned the play on the dribbled snap back to Mahomes, and he really quickly chucked it out of bounds and settled for the field goal. That may have been a play in the past where he would have worked around and looked for somebody and may have thrown an interception in the end zone because the timing was off immediately from the play. And he didn't waste any time. I think he took a look and then threw it away and got the points. So that may be an example of what you're talking about, Jesse.
You're making me think of this. I don't know I can't remember when the sequence was, but he got the intentional grounding call at one point. Then the next play, it looked like it was going to be another intentional grounding call, except for it was a roughing the passer. But it looked to me like perilously close to having that happen again. I think we're onto a little pattern.
Well, let's go back to the defense here. In a matter of 2 weeks, the Chiefs, the Pro Bowl and the All-Pro teams were announced, and the Chiefs didn't have a member of the secondary on the Pro Bowl team. And then Trent McDuffie was the first team slot corner, which is a new position, by the way, on the All-Pro team. Didn't exist last year, but a nice honor for Trent McDuffie. But once again, I listen, maybe because we see L'Jarius Sneed week after week and game after game, I can't imagine there being there was a cornerback in the NFL that had a more effective year than L'Jarius Sneed. And just the fact that he had Tyreek Hill respond to him on Twitter this week with that play where he just kept him down is testament to that. But with these two cornerbacks and the way they're playing pass defense, I think if you're looking for reasons to be optimistic about the Chiefs as they go into Buffalo, it kind of starts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spags has done a lot to help out his defensive backs this year, but I think the inverse is true of L'Jarius Sneed. I think he's done a lot to help out Spags and his play calling. I mean, when you've got a guy that can take away another team's number one, look, he's really long, and I think that's what helped him so much against Tyreek. There's not a lot of people. I mean, remember the adage when Tyreek Hill played in Kansas City is we can't press cover him because he'll run right by you. L'Jarius Sneed press covered him all day and was effective at it. And I think, when you look at the accolades like Pro Bowl and All-Pro, he's got 2 interceptions all year. And, part of a product of that is he's not getting a lot of passes thrown his way. The Cowboys defensive back, Deron Bland, who got toasted in the playoff game by the Packers, he's got
he was on
5
those
picks,
teams.
5 pick sixes, right?
And was on those teams, the All-Star teams.
Yeah, so, I mean, he makes the boom or bust plays. We haven't seen a lot of opportunity there for L'Jarius Sneed, but I do think, the Chiefs haven't done a good enough job turning the ball over enough this year. Like, I do think that's a spot they can improve, but that's the reason he's not getting the accolades that anybody that plays against L'Jarius Sneed, all these number one guys, I think will tell you it's probably the hardest matchup they've had this season.
So he's on.
I was just going to say, Blair, I think we have to throw in that the penalty situation on this, L'Jarius is one of the top defensive players when it comes to penalties.
He is number one, yeah.
He is number one. But I think this is sort of where you get a really good fit between player and system. Because you heard earlier in the year, Steve Spagnuolo was asked about that with L'Jarius Sneed, and L'Jarius Sneed was asked about it, and they were sort of shrugging their shoulders like, hey, that's the cost of doing business. And the cost of doing business with that is to have this physical, tough mentality that you come into this playoff game, you go against the Miami Dolphins, and, there's no other way to put it, guys. Like, L'Jarius Sneed bully balled Miami's offense. Like, the Chiefs took it to Miami because L'Jarius Sneed was out there and set the tone the whole day. He was on the sideline chirping to 3 or 4 guys, Miami. He put Tyreek Hill to the ground. You saw the Chiefs in the locker. They talk about this in the locker room, but they tackled. They tackled dudes in the coldest day of the year, and that's really hard to do when you're a defensive player. I think so much of that comes from a physical mentality the Chiefs want to create defensively because they do press. So many teams drop back in zone. They don't do press coverage. They don't do man coverage very much. The Chiefs don't want to lose that physicality. And so that's why, to me, this is just sort of a perfect marriage because Spag says, hey, LJ, you be you. You go be physical. I'll deal with the penalties. That's okay. And then you get to one of these games where you play a finesse team and you just punch the heck out of them. And I think that's sort of where all this comes together for the Chiefs is that L'Jarius Sneed is kind of the perfect corner for them because he embodies what they want from their corner, and they'll live with the mistakes that maybe other teams wouldn't. But because of that, you win a playoff game and you dominate a playoff game because this guy's on your side and he's just knocking the heck out of the other team.
And I think it's different than, that's the differentiator between years past. I guarantee you the Dolphins last week when they were watching film thought, this is not a great matchup for us. because their entire offense is built on the timing. You know, Tua gets rid of the ball quicker than any quarterback in the entire league. So that tells you that it's and he's also 32nd in scramble grade. Like, he does not scramble well. So their whole offense is predicated on this is what's supposed to be open, it better be open. And when you're able to jam guys and play physical with them at the line of scrimmage, then you get into the situation that we saw with the Dolphins on 4th down, to where you've got a quarterback who his first read's not open. He does not scramble well, and now what? And we saw that play out for 4 quarters. So, you know, the Bills have a much better scrambler. Josh Allen is as good as any quarterback in the league at buying extra time and actually making something out of it. If they move on, they'd play a Ravens team that's also got a really good scrambling quarterback. So I do think it's a little bit of a one-off matchup-wise, but the way the defense is playing, I still think, I mean, they might be the best defense left in the playoffs outside of the Ravens.
So what do the Chiefs do on Sunday? It seems like you have to have a spy, and I don't know if that's Willie Gay or if it's Nick Bolton. I don't know who the spy would be, but you can't let Josh Allen do to the Chiefs what he did to the Steelers on Monday afternoon. He was terrific. So I don't think he finished with 100 rushing yards, but he was close to it, and had the 52-yard touchdown run. It's different. The Bills are different than the Dolphins, and it's not Bills aren't a finesse team. They can, they're strong and can power past you. So different type of matchup for the Chiefs, but and look, the Bills have defeated the Chiefs, right, in the regular season, beat them 20-17 at Arrowhead. I don't remember much from that game beyond the play that didn't count, the Mahomes to Kelsey to Tony, because it's funny. Kansas City was really upset about that play until kind of the next day. They all realized Tony absolutely lined up offside, and nothing you can do about it. The right call was made. Andy had a fit after the game, but I bet he wouldn't say much about it now. But this is a different game, different opponent. Bills have lost twice to the Chiefs in the playoffs in the last 3 years. So I think more at stake for Buffalo in terms of where their organization is and what kind of decisions they have to make about the future than with Kansas City.
Well, I do think this, and I think it's at the crux of the whole thing, and I think we all look at it a little differently, whether it's an advantage for Buffalo or an anvil over its head, because it's sort of not now or never, but if not now, when to beat the Chiefs. And they've been able to beat the Chiefs in some regular season games, but I do think there's a certain mystique attached to this that is, it's something else to get over for Buffalo. Doesn't mean they won't. It could set about a totally different kind of streak. But as of right now, given everything that the Chiefs have done with Patrick Mahomes, the state of mind, sort of the flow state, as Bobby Stroud, Patrick's longtime trainer, likes to call it, that Patrick gets in, I think that's accentuated in these moments. And I think Josh Allen is, for all his talents, has yet to prove he can get over this kind of hump. So don't know what that will portend, but I think it's just as possible it's a burden for Buffalo to look at it that way as it is inspiration.
Buffalo, for all its success in the last the Josh Allen era, they've only been to one AFC title game, and that was the game at Arrowhead where they led the Chiefs 9-0. Remember, McCole Hardman had the muff punt that led to a touchdown, and the Chiefs just blew them out of the water after that. And then the 13-second game was the divisional round game the next year, and they didn't meet in the playoffs a year ago. But Buffalo exited with that, kind of lopsided loss at home to the Bengals in the divisional round. So Buffalo, for as formidable as they appear and as hot as they are, they really do have something to prove in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, the Bills are favored for a reason. They, by all the advanced metrics, they've had a really good season. I know the record early on didn't indicate that when they started 6-6, but they did not have a lot of bounces go their way. They were better than that 6-6 record. Oddly, in this 5-0 stretch, some of their numbers are actually worse. You know, their offensive EPA, even though after they fired Ken Dorsey, a lot of people say, oh, well, that must be their turnaround. Well, they've actually been a little bit worse offensively than when they were 6-6. Defensively, they're beat up. I mean, they had 2 cornerbacks. They were already playing without Rasul Douglas, who they traded for from Green Bay early in the season. It's been great for them. They got 2 other cornerbacks hurt in the game against Pittsburgh. Their leading tacklers out, a middle linebacker. And the Bills, what they do better defensively than anything else is they defend the middle of the field really well, which if you're the Chiefs, you like to attack the middle of the field with both Rice and Kelsey. So I think you'd ordinarily look at that as problematic. If you're missing your middle linebacker, that changes things. The interesting matchup to me is the Bills really don't defend the deep ball well at all. They like to use their safeties, and it's given the Chiefs problems in those, rover situations. Go double robber situations. Go double Travis Kelsey or Rashee Rice on this route. So I just wonder if we're going to see the Chiefs try and attack deep over the field a little bit more than we have, which is not an area that they've been really successful this season.
A McCole Hardman game is what you're predicting.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, guys, I was holding my breath every time rewatching the game when the Dolphins brought an all-out blitz with no safety, because the Chiefs were an eyelash away about 4 different times, but that's been the story of their season. They've been an eyelash away from those deep shots the entire course of the year. But I'm with Sam here. The reason the Bills are favored is that, Vegas is telling us they're the better team. And I kind of think back to sort of the narratives we create in our minds. Bill Self can't make a Final Four until he does. Tony Bennett chokes in the first round until he wins the national title the next year. You only get so many opportunities. So I absolutely think the onus is on the Bills to prove that they can do this. Obviously, they were 13 seconds away in a very famous game in this one, but the Chiefs are going to have their hands full in this one, especially with the setting moving to Buffalo. They've been able to play all these games at Arrowhead all these years. The one thing I will say, and that kind of makes me just pause with this, is the Bills kind of got unlucky again this year with something that was outside of their control, which is that they played Monday. The Chiefs played Saturday, and now you got to turn around and play again on Sunday. And Warren Sharp's done all this analysis. This is not a perfect apples-to-apples comparison, but he talked about teams with 3 or more days rest advantage, and they said since 2015, this is his stat, from week 13 onward, teams have won 55% of their games with the 3-game advantage and covered the spread 56% of the time in a 106-game sample. This will be 2 games instead of 3 games, but you would think the same sort of thing applies, and that's what Sam is talking about. You get a few guys injured on a Monday night game or Monday afternoon game, and you turn around and you have to play Sunday. That's a really quick turnaround. So I think the Chiefs have a little bit of an advantage there, and if we do talk about them potentially winning this game, I think that's not something we can overlook, that the second half of the season, they were at the rest disadvantage, and at the most important time, they potentially have a little bit of a break.
All right, Jesse, you do the official prediction for the Chiefs, and you don't do it until Friday. You put a lot of thought into it and a lot of consideration. But what's the early week lean on this game?
I always thought if the Chiefs had to play at Buffalo, that would probably end their season. So I'm not going to stick with that necessarily. Don't know yet. I am a real believer the rest thing can help the Chiefs, though. And I'm a real believer in what Vahe talked about, which is I think that there's a little bit of mental stuff that goes into this. The Bills thinking, God, they played well for 59 minutes and 47 seconds against this team one time in the playoffs, and it was not good enough. I mean, they're basically celebrating on the sideline, and it was not good enough. So there is sort of this aura around the Chiefs that they're going to have to overcome. I think the setting is better, obviously, for the Bills in this one. It still might end up picking them, but if the Chiefs are going to have this sort of rest advantage, what a time to have a week off for your starters, play early the next week, and then get your guys rested up and play a Bills team that is just turning and coming off of another game. So this should be a really good one. That's what I do know.
First time the Chiefs will have played in front of fans in Buffalo since 2014. So I'm looking forward to the leaping off of whatever they leap off onto the tables, whatever the Bills Mafia.
I think to get the full Buffalo story, it should be a first-person story of Vahe taking a jump from the top of a snow hill onto the table.
I'm your guy.
And if you're on,
now you're right. You're writing the first person observing me. Is that how it's going to go?
If you're in capacity to do it, I'll write it afterwards.
The thing about Sam is he would just bounce off the table. All right, guys, we'll see you in Buffalo. That'll do it for today. Thanks to Monty Davis for putting together the episode. and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to Sam McDowell, Vahe Gregorian, and Jesse Newell for sharing their insights. Continue to follow the best Chiefs coverage in the Kansas City Star, on kansascity.com, and in the best digital newspaper out there, liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.